a UFO was witnessed by several people traveling in cars, independent, and a few people walking around. It manifested close to the ground in a field. It suddenly appeared, and it adversely affected the plants because it was very close to the ground. Scientists came out and took samples of the plants. Now, that is what was referred to as a plant traumatology test, biological traumatology. And the biological traumatology results showed exactly the same dithermic reaction that happened in the plants. So here we have it, guys. The sudden materialization of an apple and the sudden materialization of a UFO simply are utilizing the same physics here.
That's so interesting.
And that shouldn't happen unless we've got a correlation between the phenomena.
Ladies and gentlemen, aliens and earthlings, welcome back. Prepare yourselves for a journey beyond the ordinary as we welcome a true maestro of the mysterious to our podcast stage. He's not just any researcher. He is the captain of the ship sailing through the seas of the supernatural. With 32 years at the helm, our guest today is the founder of SEP, the Scientific Establishment of Parapsychology, the enigmatic mind behind Phenomena Magazine, and the undisputed chairman of all things Unexplained in Manchester, UK. Imagine an acumen that reads like a paranormal thriller. International lecturer, tutor, investigator for confidential and corporate cases. He has a career spanning over 90 TV shows and series, with hosting roles that have sent shivers down spines worldwide. With more than 100 radio stations under his belt, he's not just a voice, he's the echo of the uncharted. Our guest doesn't just write for the paranormal, he practically is the paranormal. With over 300 publications globally, he's not just a journalist, he's the scribe of the supernatural and phenomenology. Currently, he's captivating audiences with his knowledge on paranormal disturbances, having lent his experience to corporate giants, businesses, housing associations, city councils, and even police authorities, all behind a veil of confidentiality. So hold on to your hats, folks, because this guest is not just the host of the TV series Phenomena Project and Project Doorway with UAMNTV. He is a phenomena himself. And guess what? He's on the hunt for a new adventure, seeking U.S. commissioning and interest. Let's get ready to dive into the enigma with the unparalleled Steve Mera himself. And once again, this is George with a G, aka the legend of Honolulu himself. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my awesome UAP Society co-hosts. You have the floor.
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, AlliE, and I don't know if you could tell from that side of the screen, but my cheeks are hurting because I've been cheesing this whole morning getting ready to have a talk with Mr. Steve Mera. So I'm just going to let Justin say hi so we can start talking because my brain's going a mile a minute already.
Hey, everybody. It's Justin with Living Life Consciously and the UAP Society. Looking forward to having this conversation with Mr. Steve Mera. Let's go ahead and get into it. Mr. Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. I just want to say that's probably about the best intro I've ever had.
Nice. Wasn't it so much fun?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously from 8 years ago, I think, because I've done 40 years. I've been 40 years now into the subject.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning. And you know what? I will never reach a satisfactory level, I don't think.
Lifelong learner status. Love that.
Yeah, it's the complexity of this phenomenon is so big. It's just the more you delve into it, and more areas are opening. Unreachable knowledge, really. You can only absorb as much as you possibly can in your lifetime, but that makes a difference because, you know, I'm not one of the guys who wants to walk around with his head down and just stay in society and do what they say and believe what they say. And we're here for a short period of time, guys. And as you get older, it gets faster and faster and faster, and that's scary.
Yeah.
And I watched the years go by quicker and quicker, and now I've got less years here than I have behind me. I look back and I think, well, yeah, you know, I've learned a lot. But it's the most important thing is that I've learned something about the world we live in, and that's probably more significant than anything else we possibly learn. So for me, yeah, I got into the subject 40 years ago. That's thank you to my father, who had a load of books in his cupboard. Eric von Daniken was the first book I read.
Oh, wow. I've seen him on Gaia TV.
Son of Gods, Eric von Daniken.
Yeah.
And I work with him now. It's just crazy. I would never have dreamt that back as a young lad when I was like 15 and 16, when, you know, 14, 15, reading his books. But I've got into that. I mean, most of my friends are into sort of comics and all sorts of things. I was reading Eric von Daniken, Brad Steiger, Inside the Flying Saucer, all those wonderful old books. And I was absolutely fascinated. And in '83, I did my first investigation in Liverpool in the UK. It was a UFO sighting. And then I decided I had interest in the paranormal phenomenon because, you know, my grandmother had some experiences. She told me about it. And
so you grew up hearing these kinds of things then?
I grew up, yeah, absolutely. I grew up in those circles. My father was very much into the subject of UFOs. My grandmother and family were into the subject paranormal. And for me, though, I initially wasn't going to do this. This wasn't a job, as you can well imagine. I was an engineer. I went to college and then on to university, and I was a telecommunications engineer for NATO for a small period of time in Essex in the UK, and RAF Wethersfield. But I still had the interest, and it was just gnawing at the bone, as you could say.
Yeah.
And eventually I thought I'd give into it, and I came out of the subject, and I started writing for television, numerous different shows and assisting and things like that. One British show with Michael Aspel was called Strange But True. It's an old TV show from the 80s. Then I kind of got into Ghost Hunters, the TV series. There was a UK version as well.
Yeah.
So I was involved in that and doing some research and things. So I ended up writing a lot of different things for television and articles for magazines. And then I went international with those articles as a journalist. But I had really strong feelings about paranormal. So I did a few paranormal courses for whatever were available. There wasn't much back then, of course, not like it is today. Okay. And then I went into psychology and parapsychology. So I did a psychology degree in behavioral sciences. And then I went into parapsychology and I did some criminology. I only did the criminology because I was really interested in deception and identification of deception. In other words, if I'm interviewing people, are there certain methods I can find out from their pose, the stance, their attitude, the behavior, about authenticity, because, you know, it's really important. So that does actually help. And I got head on into parapsychology, even further into experimental parapsychology, forensic parapsychology, and then, because it's all about how do we perceive these things, how do we cognate those incidents, and you know what's going on with the brain at the end of the day. It also comes to play. So I came from that background, and I was involved in some experiments at a very high level in parapsychology. I was involved in 17 experiments. Only 3 have ever been released to the public.
What kind of experiments?
These are open communications with non-human intelligences.
Really?
Through the process of initiation through seance, and then long-term establishment through DVP, direct voice phenomena. So we had 17 experiments. 3 have been released to the public. It's because things have to be digested over a period of time. It's got to be time before they get released, you see. It gets a little bit heavier and heavier the further we get into researching this phenomena. And then, after doing so much research in the paranormal field, I realized that there were associations with the UFO phenomena. And I thought,
commonalities, right? You saw that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was told by people in the 80s that, well, it's the UFOs, these are things that are extraterrestrial, they're traveling the vast distances of space,
Right.
they're traveling in their very solid physical crafts with exotic engines and
very nuts and bolts kind of way of looking at it, right?
Exactly, and that's what kind of my mentors told me back in the day, and how much is that? So much changes now. We've left that all behind, really. But I was interested in I did a specific study of research where I specialize in is what I refer to as paranormal mechanics, the physics. And what we tend to do is we break it down and we look at the elements of the phenomena and how that can happen. How does it work? What physics are involved? What can we find out? How do we bench test it? What equipment can we utilize? Those little pieces make up pictures. And so that's where I kind of ended up specializing and realizing there was a very strong connection to the UFO phenomena, which, if you consider the paranormal, was allegedly thought to be a very earthly phenomena, age-old paranormal phenomena is earthly, age-old phenomena.
Sure.
We don't know what it means, but why would it fall hand in hand if we're dealing with extraterrestrials coming from another planet, vast distances away? Why should these two, be similar in so many facts? I mean, I'll give you one example.
Okay.
And there are multiple examples we have, but let me just give you one to give you an idea of where I'm going. Apportation, the study of apports in regarding poltergeist disturbances. Now, we'll all hear the general rule of thumb, oh, well, suddenly they're found to appear. They're usually warm to the touch. And that's pretty much it. We don't really get much more than that, do we? But for us, what we did is that we analyze apports. We take them and put them under microscopy, atomic microscopy, that's specialized equipment which looks at them at literally the cellular level, in microscopic levels, to look what's happened inside, what the atoms, the parts, the materials. And when we bench test them against other items, for instance, in this case, this would be a mug, which disappeared and reappeared. It was found 96 minutes later in an obvious location in the middle of the living room carpet, which you couldn't miss. Was warm to the touch. I think it was 12 to 15 degrees warmer.
Wow.
But it had a slight radioactive trace in it. Only slight, though. Only slightly above normal, but it was a slight.
But significant enough to note, right?
Well, we noted it, because of interest. It wasn't huge. It was higher than normal. So,
okay.
But for us, we asked, obviously, the owner, this mug, how long have you had this mug? He said, well, I bought them at Christmas time, which was about 3 months ago, and I bought them as a set of 4. And I said, oh, do you have the other 3? He said, yes. I said, well, do you mind if we can take the apported mug, and we had to write a little A on it, because you'd never know the difference between them.
Okay.
And can we take a normal mug out of the cupboard? Because they all were manufactured at the same time. There were 4 of them in a set, manufactured. So we took the sample mug, which had, the one out of the cupboard, and we took the apported mug off for analysis, and they were broken down and analysed. Now, what was really interesting, which was quite shocking actually, is they're both, 3.19 grams, and they're both identical. You wouldn't tell the difference between them. They look the same, they feel the same. There's literally no difference. You couldn't work out any difference between them. However, under the microscope, massive difference, massive.
Like what?
Well, let me just say, the computer systems have a scoring effect, and it acts like a seesaw. And what happens is it matches the sample to what is being tested. In other words, it looks at just the normal mug against the aborted mug.
Mm-hmm.
And we had all the readings, all the information for the normal mug, and all the readings and the information for the aborted mug. And the system, the computer system, couldn't recognize the aborted mug because of the significant differences. In fact, on a scale situation, the computer was saying it wasn't the mug. In fact, there was more information in the details of the analysis to suggest it was more like a mimic, not a mug, not at all. Though like, it feels and looks and everything's the same to us under the microscope. No, and one of the biggest giveaways was a very unusual, extremely high dithermic reaction had taken place. Very unusual, because it literally changed everything on the microscopic level in there. Now, we don't know if that's an effect of the materialization, dematerialization process.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, that's got to be to this thing breaking down on an atomic level and then reassembling itself here.
You'd think so, but you think that under those circumstances, we'd look for dissipation, and we should have dissipation. The analysis on the mug now, after a few years later, is no difference. The diathermic reaction stays the same, so it is different. It's massively different. But the thing is what was really interesting is that when I read the report on the diathermic reaction, I've seen this before somewhere, and I couldn't rattle my brain. And I was, look, where have I seen this? I've had this report in my hand. I've seen this before.
Okay.
I don't know many people go to much lengths in the scientific study of analysing reports, but I think it's necessary to do so.
Okay.
So I thought to myself, well, it must be in my files. So I ended up got this very large filing cabinet. So I'm going through all the paranormal cases over the years, and I couldn't find it.
It
And
was somewhere else, wasn't it?
Months went by, and I was sat there watching TV one evening. And I had this epiphany, this light bulb moment.
Ding!
I'm looking in the wrong files. I need to be looking in the UFO stuff.
Oh, okay. See, us humans and our labels, right?
So here we go, that compartmentalization. So
yep.
I ended up going down and looking at UFO files, and bingo, there it was. In the case in the 1990s. A UFO was witnessed by several people traveling in cars, independent, and a few people walking around. It manifested close to the ground in a field. It suddenly appeared, and it adversely affected the plants because it was very close to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists came out and took samples of the plants. Now, that is what was referred to as a plant traumatology test, biological traumatology. And the biological traumatology results showed exactly the same dithermic reaction that happened in the plants. So here we have it, guys. The sudden materialization of an apple and the sudden materialization of a UFO simply are utilizing the same physics here.
That's so interesting.
And that shouldn't happen unless we've got a correlation between the phenomena.
Right.
And how is the correlation if we're dealing with an old earthly ancient paranormal phenomena and something extraterrestrial coming from some other planet? Shouldn't happen. And that led us, that's just like when we look at paranormal mechanics, that's just one little thing, right? Now we have 209 examples.
Oh, wow.
That's just one. And the more we got into the paranormal mechanics, we started picking at areas where nobody had actually even thought to even look at, to be honest with you. And we were shocked at the UFO phenomena being, it is paranormal. It is. UFO phenomena is wrongly termed. In fact, we have a problem regarding the compartmentalization, which is, you know what, I don't think it's by accident. I think it's been going on for a very long time. I think it was introduced in the early days.
Yeah.
The paranormal subject was kept well out of the UFO. The UFO was kept well out of and the paranormal guys have never deal with the UFO guys, and UFO guys never deal with the paranormal. It's like the cryptid guys. The cryptid, the Bigfoot guys, they don't even belong in any camp. They just want their own camp.
It's true.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're going to keep hitting the heads off the wall because, you know what, it's metaphysical phenomena that we're dealing with in all three camps.
Right. It's like there's an umbrella that all of this stuff fits under.
Exactly. That's it. So the problem is when you're trying to figure out your UFO stuff and trying to conclude on some things, you're just not getting it. And the reason is because those that information isn't in the subject of ufology. It's in the paranormal or the parapsychological research or metaphysical research.
Yeah.
Or cryptids. It's all in other camps.
We're looking in the wrong spot almost.
Exactly. So we realize we've got to get rid of the compartmentalization, because this is what's limiting us. We're not getting the answers because people can't seem to bring them in. People tend to live in this box.
Right.
And this box trying to figure out it, and the answer's not in there. Now, I'm aware that there are a number of governments were aware of the connection, were aware of what was really kind of going on at an early days. And we're talking sort of 40s onwards. Now, that is when they decided that they've really got to hammer home the narrative of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, traveling from distant planets and that sort of thing. And of course, after NASA in the 60s, when NASA went to the moon and employed the Brookings Institute, when they asked the question, if we find anything, should we tell the public? Because scientists got together from the Brookings Institute and they wrote a lengthy report, and they concluded, no, don't tell the public. Well, that's not the important bit. The interesting thing here is the last couple of paragraphs in the report, because it said, you must prepare the public. And to do that, hence came the drip feed program.
Yeah.
Now, the drip feed program is to make sure that it's in the consciousness of every individual walking the planet as best as they possibly could. That means that your lifestyle will incorporate it some way, even if it's for children, it'll be cartoons, it's films, it's movies, it's toys, it's
music.
It's in food, it's in sweets, in plain sauce of sweets and alien crisps, and they indoctrinate it, and they do it through the television. The media is the best way, especially through television series, hence Star Trek and all those. They all follow the same narrative, actually, if you look at those things closely.
Yeah, they do.
And the blockbuster movies, which captures the world's imagination. But it's always about the narrative. Now, what you don't see is, what the true narrative is behind the phenomenon.
What's that?
That is not simply extraterrestrial traveling the vast distances of space and that sort of thing. Because the true narrative is a little concerning, to say the least. The true narrative has connotations. Now, the problem is that when I say connotations with all sorts of things associated with belief and religion, even, we have a phenomena that is terrestrial based. UFO phenomena is terrestrial based. How do we know that? Well, it goes back to before documented history, pre-documented.
Okay.
It's just not there. It's just we can't go back anymore. We've got it back to 700 BC, but there's no documentation. We can't go back further than that because it's not recorded. All we're relying on then is tales and legends passed through generations, which isn't good. Because over the years you get things added like Chinese whispers, and cave drawings.
I was thinking that.
It's hard to interpret that because we don't know the mindset of the individuals doing it.
Right.
So that's a real big problem. But we can get it back to 700 BC. But the thing is that this is no new phenomena. It's always been here, and the fact is that it evolves with us. It's intelligent. It evolves, and if you follow the mask is forever changing. The phenomena stays the same. So we track the phenomena, not the mask. Not if it could be serpents in from the first time, at serpent worship, serpent deities. It could be gentry type encounters, small beings and things like that. It could be classed as demonic, demons, angels in some cases, because the angels didn't turn up until the days of Ezekiel, so that's very convenient. But if you look at this, the mask is forever changing.
But the phenomenon behind it remains the same. Jinx.
Yeah, it does. And do you know what? It's only in modern times we go, oh, you know what? Maybe there's a little bit, some of the deities all the deities wanted blood worship, all of them. and there was lots of blood worship. Now you'll look at Mayan history or Aztec or Inca and stuff, because when you think about blood worship to deities, those are the three things that come to mind, don't they? Inca, Aztec, Mayan.
Right.
Okay.
The storybooks and the pictures that you'll see aren't exactly correct, because they used to show images of men being sacrificed upon an altar and that sort of thing. There was struggle involved. Yeah, these guys, nobody's going to walk up to an altar and say, you know what, with that blunt knife over there, I want you to cut me open.
Sign me up, I'm ready.
Yeah, and I'm happy about it. No. They were taken forcefully, but these weren't men, actually. They were mostly women. And they sacrificed the women to these deities during the menstrual cycle. And the reasons why is because they had less iron in the body. Because deities have a reaction to iron. They don't like it. It's not good. And we still see that thread even in modern day times, which I will get into. But the thing is, though, what people don't realize is if you're Catholic, Christian, our God, the God we know, if you bother reading through the Old Testament, and it goes further than that, they've actually a lot has been taken out the Old Testament, but there's references in there, and even God demanded blood worship, blood sacrifice, and it happened. Yeah, Isaac was sacrificed by his father for God, and God had his bad days and demanded blood sacrifice. No different than any other deity. No different than the Aztec God, the Inca God, the Mayan God. In fact, all the gods, if you go back in time, all want blood sacrifice. Now, the thing is that this connotation goes right through. It's a very deep thread throughout history of what these things are. And they communicate, they influence, they call them, some people call them the whisperers, some people call them the watchers, but they influence and interact with mankind. And they have done in multiple masks. The masks are always changing, be it reptilians, be it greys, be it Nordics, be it Palladians. It's all the same phenomena, but it's representation changes the mask. It's how we perceive the phenomena. Now, we talk about things being very physical, and yes, they can be physical in nature, but sometimes they're not. They can walk through walls. The ships can become apparitional and travel through its solid materials, travel into the ground, hillsides, volcanoes.
Mesas.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a stronger geological connection to the UFO phenomenon than ever been the skies, but they don't want you to know that. They want you to keep the ruse is, keep your eyes on the skies, keep your minds on extraterrestrials traveling from vast distances from other planets. That's what they want us to do. That's the narrative.
Okay.
That's the ruse.
But the geomagnetic electrical anomalies, the positive geomagnetic electrical anomalies, as well as the negative ones that you've pointed out in your research, you found a correlation between these filters that you can apply to Google Earth, and you could see the ley lines across the planets and how they're actually correlated with the construction of these humongous structures throughout human history, the pyramids, Stonehenge, etc.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we weren't the first to realize this. We got some information. Once we started into it, we got some information that fled through to us that the United States military, or the Air Force and the military, were looking into the positive magnetic regions in association to the UFO phenomenon back in 1982. Back sometime, but it just kept it under wraps. We didn't talk about this sort of stuff. It doesn't go with the normal narrative. They don't want people to think that.
Right.
Because one of the biggest problems that they have is because the narrative is to believe in the physical aspects of visitation from extraterrestrials from another planet and the whole disclosure around that.
Okay.
And this is this narrative that they push. It's going on now, isn't it? In Congress, and it's been going. And you know what? You can go 10 or more back to the Citizens Against Ufology movement, which is one of the first. None of them will ever get anywhere. They always come up and say, yes, we've got a new person saying the old story. Oh, aliens are real, UFOs are real. Okay, right, well, we know all that, but tell us something, what we need to know. No, it's just going to add another, it's just a mountain of more material of what we've already got, and it dissipates, and then moves on, and then there'll be another one, and so on. You know, I mean, Stephen Gray tried to do this with a disclosure program, never
Yeah.
worked, and he did it more than once. You know, before that there was somebody else. Then there was another congressional hearing, and then there was something else, and now we're into this one.
So you don't think that any disclosure effort is actually going to come to fruition? You think it's all just like some kind of cyclical thing that never really results in anything?
What will happen with disclosure is we'll be disclosing another lie, if anything. I mean, that lie, the lie is there's a threat. Well, there is a threat, but not in the way they say, not in the way they think.
Where does the threat lie then?
The threat lies in regarding the interaction with these entities. That's where the threat lies, not in a UFO is going to collide with a civilian aircraft. Never going to happen. If you're running down the road, you're not going to collide with a tortoise, are you? So it's, you know,
right.
Look at the analogy here. It's just not going to happen. It's never happened in history. Why should it happen now?
Right.
The thing is, these things are age old. They've watched us evolve. They know about us. They know everything of everything. Everything is where all our stuff is. And there's never been that threat in that way. The threat is an undertone. The threat is from the dark side. It's underneath. It's in the shadows. It's how it interacts with people.
Okay.
In a psychological process, as opposed to any physical threat in that sense. But the idea is to generate a threat. So Congress will come up with a load of money, billions to put into a project of some sort, which will disappear into the black program, probably weaponized in space, because they keep trying to push for that one. Of course, they'll have to break the 1976 Space Treaty Act that was put in force, which they're adamant on not doing in Congress, but they keep going back to the table every year, and they're going to keep pressing because they realize that just like Space Force, you know, the announce of a Space Force in existence is because we've already got it. It comes a time when a secret program can't be secret anymore when you're dealing with so many military contractors. And those people that work for them know. And then people might work with somebody else that know. It gets to a point where it's referred to as non-management. You can't manage it anymore. It's just not.
It's too big to handle almost, right?
Too big to handle. So what do they do is they bring it into the light. It comes from the shadow into the light, and by doing that, you say, look, do you know, guys, I think it's time we have a Space Force. Yes, okay, we're going to announce it. The Space Force exists. And that gets rid of the problem that we've had it for 20, 30 years operating, you see. So, and this is what kind of do with the program. So weaponizing space, yes, they've already started doing some of that, very, very secretly. But at some point, you can't hide it. At some point, it's got to come out of the shadows into the light. And to do that, it needs money. Congressional money, and will be might be the design of weapon systems for satellites, fast track satellites, as they're referring to be able to intercept fast walkers, or what they refer to as these objects moving at high speed. Now, to do that, that's a weapon system in space. So 1976 Act has to be abolished, and quite a number of billion, or even trillion in some cases, dollars is put forward by the congressional hearings to manage this threat. But the threat's not that side. The threat's clever. It's intuitive and knows how to operate, and it has been doing for such a long time. The first aliens, or extraterrestrials, or interdimensional beings, or whatever you want to call these things, didn't appear in association with any UFOs. It was around the seance table.
Oh my gosh. I had such a huge revelation earlier because I was watching your interview with Grant Cameron when you were talking about how many UFOs the size of like a table appeared in a room where people were performing a seance, and it shot like I don't want to say the word shot because that indicates like hostility, but it pointed a laser towards the center of the table, and as it flew around the room, that point stayed fixated. And just the idea of a mini UFO manifesting itself inside a cellar just to prove its existence, like, hey guys, I'm here, I've been here. That literally blew my mind. Like, ask him. I was like, holy crap, I never even conceptualized that thought before.
Well, it's referring to the skull experiments and the advanced skull experiments.
Yeah.
The world's most prominent experiments, and I've been involved in some of the higher end of those experiments. So it started off with what you might refer to as spiritual experiences. communicating with intelligences that claim to be human,
Okay.
and physical interaction, and the sighting of. Then it moved into balls of light, which had mass. I mean, you're already part and parcel of the conscious experience here, the conscious connection with the phenomenon. Because if you're around the table and you see balls of light moving in the room, and you think about, hold your hand out and just think, please come and land in my hand. They'll come and land in your hand.
Oh.
You only got to think it. It's that conscious connection. It's happening more.
Oh yeah.
More often than anybody could ever imagine. And the interesting thing is that when you land in your hand, you go like this, and the light's coming through your hands, but you can feel weight to them.
Right.
And then they're intelligent. You can ask them to come and touch you on the finger, and they'll come and touch you on the finger, or this thumb, or whatever. But
Wow.
sometimes what they do is they come and bounce on the table. Sometimes they go right through it and come back through it again. So they're demonstrating purposely.
You've witnessed this yourself?
We've witnessed it ourselves many times.
Wow.
The light phenomena is metaphysical in nature. It wants to prove it so. It's screaming out to you, I'm not physical, I'm metaphysical. I can be physical when I want to be.
Wow.
And I'm non-physical to you when I want to be. It's demonstrating to us in all this learning capability of this is a metaphysical phenomenon.
Yeah.
Then came the UFOs. Dinner-sized plate UFOs, and they don't look like toys. They look like flying saucers. They look like shapes, and even a triangular one.
Yeah.
And they're
like proper UFOs.
No sound, lights on them, and they're just moving around the room. But they shone a light down to the center of the table, but it never left its spot. So it was kind of going like this sort of thing. It was very odd.
The implications of this are wild.
It's crazy. But there is another stage. After that came the manifestation of non-human entities.
Okay.
Now, that is when the control was lost around the circle. That's when it took a serious change. Because once they came in, the management was lost.
What do you mean? How so?
Now, Mr. Mera, I'm reminded of a case that you shared on one of your episodes about this tulpa, where these group of experienced seancers intentionally willed to fruition a totally fictional character. They imagined where he lived, how he died, he jumped off a building, and he manifested in real life in our 3D dimension.
They did, yeah, and that was known as the Philip experiment. Took place in Ontario, Canada. It was done by psychologists and experimenters, and over a short period of time, they basically, through the power of belief, they manufactured a ghost, in a sense of speaking. His name was Philip, hence the Philip experiment, and interacted with them. They bore a tulpa, in a sense of speaking. It became its own living entity, in a sense. Away from the requirements of those individuals. But it's, that practice has been going on for many, many years in witchcraft. There are many different names for it, but it's also been used in witchcraft and generation of tulpa. And in other societies around the world, ancient societies, would sometimes create them. Now, the power of belief is significant. The manifestation of these things, because when they lost control over the skull experiment is when those entities, non-human entities, turned up. There's a management that's required, and that's around the circle. There are people which are trained in dealing in mediumistic skills, you could say, and these have been filtered out. These are very clever guys, and certainly gifted. There's a certain management that's required, and they lost the management as soon as these things came in.
It took a life on its own, and it was negative in its...
These things were interacting of their own fruition, and they couldn't control the flow. So what was happening was...
They opened the floodgates almost, right?
They opened the floodgates, exactly. And what happened was that we realized, it was quite shocking, really. What happened is they realized that there were thousands There were thousands of these things. Quite a number did manage to get through. They had to forcefully close down the skull because it was becoming dangerous. But the problem is, those that came through never left.
Oh.
Now, Robin Froy of the Skull Experiment has released a couple of books on the Skull Experiment, and he never wrote about it. And he passed away. He passed away about a year ago. I know that he never wrote about it. I know about it because we talked about it. They never left him. They stayed with him for the rest of his life, those things. You know, they interfered with his life. They were in his house. They were in his life. You know, it's...
So there seems to be this trickster element to them.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's when they lost the control. So that's just when the Skull Experiment shut down. Several years later, it was reopened again under the heading of Advanced Skull. And a colleague of mine, who was Nick Kyle, was part of those advanced studies. And he got to the levels of witnessing the objects again and the balls of light and stuff and lots of other strange things. And then that got closed, and then it got reopened again by a couple of Scottish physical mediums who I went to interview in a restaurant. And I was about to interview them when my plate and knife and things were moving on the table. So I realized very quickly, well, I don't need to do the interview. You know, these guys are legitimate. And they conducted quite a number of tests as well. And that evolved into something known as what George mentioned earlier in the introduction, which was Phenomena Project. The Phenomena Project took it one step further about the communications. And we found out, we opened up a channel so regular that we were told we could ask questions to gain answers.
Oh.
They were replying at this time away from recording devices and direct voice phenomena, DVP. It's in the air. It's always above you. Funny, you stand up, it's above you. Sit down, it's above you.
Okay.
And the information that we got said, you know, and ask some questions. So we said, okay, so we'll come back to our next session. We'll come back with 10 questions.
What was the first thing you asked it?
You know what? It's interesting that you say that because for years I've always just reeled them off. Oh God, I'd ask about this, I'd ask about that. But what happened was the realism of this was when it actually came to writing down pen to paper, I paused because I didn't, for the first time ever, I realized this is, you know, I'm going to get the answer. And I started to think, do I really want the answer?
Oh, yeah.
Because you really do have to think for once in your life, you know, I mean, excitement takes over and you go, oh yeah, I'd ask about this, I'd ask about that. But
sure.
When you know you're going to get some answer, I don't know what the answer was going to be, but I thought, well, if they tell me an answer, how do I live with that? You know, concepts. And I started to think really about, do I really want to know the answers? But nevertheless, though, we got together and we wrote 10 questions down. One of the first ones about how many realities are there around us. There were multiple questions. Is there multiple universes? A second question, number 2, and it went on to more interesting ones. But went to the table. We opened up communication. We said we've come with 10 questions. Okay. And there was a different voice that came out because there's multiple ones. Can do slightly sound different. That said, ask your questions. And we were just about to ask the questions when there was a constant boom, 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 boom of replies. And they gave us all the replies to the questions before we'd even asked them.
So they knew them ahead of time.
Yeah, which indicates that they knew what you were coming to the table with, literally, right?
Now this opens up a whole new book. Because
wow. The implications of what you're saying is so profound.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the hell? I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, how do people go and see a psychic medium who's going to talk to great uncle who passed away recently? And you go in there and you say, okay, now don't get me wrong, they're doing their job. They will reach out consciously to something.
Yep.
And establish a communication, and they'll get information back. But whatever's giving them the information can obtain it from you. So it obtains the information from you,
Yeah.
And it finds it to the psychic medium who reveals it to you, and you go, oh my God, it's got to be real because I only one that knows this. But no, you don't. Everything around that knows it. And this is the problem. Then that lies a big problem as to the authenticity, or could we be being deceived? We just don't know. This is why the parapsychological departments will rule out that there's no evidence of afterlife. Know that they are aware, if you press them, that there is intelligences that will communicate with us. But they are aware about deception. And if you just have 1 ounce of deception in there, you have to say, okay, well, whatever that you're being told, that afterlife might not be true.
Now, Mr. Mera, you mentioned this deceptive, manipulative, trickster element. And earlier on in the conversation, you talked about the schism in ufology, how traditionally it's been viewed that aliens or extraterrestrial life come from other planets or other star systems. And I believe it was Jacques Vallée in Passport to Magnolia who argued the interdimensionality aspect, that the extraterrestrial hypothesis is way too simplistic to take into account the historical record of how the phenomena has actually manifested itself throughout human history. And I remember in one of your episodes on UAMNTV where you stated that I guess this compendium of research was digitized with the paranormal phenomena as well as well-known cases in ufology. It was uploaded. All this data, this quantitative, this qualitative data was uploaded into a Cray supercomputer. And it was asked of the Cray supercomputer, hey, what are the commonalities and similarities between the paranormal aspect and everything in ufology? Yeah. And interestingly enough, the Cray supercomputer said it's from the same source.
Oh, snap.
It's from the same source. Yeah, I've been having these discussions with Jack for a long time, and he's absolutely spot on, the guy. He's absolutely spot on. He was revolutionary because he was one of the first people asking the right questions, at the time.
Shout out, Jacques.
He's done his work. Yeah, he's done his work. So, great. We are both on the same page here. And he's right on everything he said. Now, the thing is, what you're referring to there, George, is we looked at something called the advanced CRS system. It was an AI, a very advanced AI. I mean, even though Jack tried to do it in the late 60s, but with the computer technology they had then, it wasn't great. We needed some of the stuff we have now. And wow, the stuff we have now in artificial intelligence computers are just incredible. And it was 3 years of information went into this computer. 3 years. That's every single thing you can think about within the subject and the subsubjects and the subsubjects of that. Be it crop circles, be it fish falls from the sky, heavenly encounters, be it the UFOs, the paranormal, the cryptid, you name it. Everything, all rolled into one. Every little bit of information you could possibly lay their hands on fed into this computer. And the whole point of this operation was to try and get the computer to work out what's it all mean? What's the conclusion? What's behind all this? So the narratives were put in there, the details, should we say, of the parameters of those questions. And eventually, after 3 years, they decided to conclude button and
hit enter, right?
Yeah, reams and reams of information to come out. But no, it was surprisingly very little. There was only a few paragraphs, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs. But what it said, it's really intriguing, is that the connectivity was so high between all this phenomena, all the very different things, be it cryptids, be it UFOs, be it paranormal, demonology, the religious connotation, stuff like that. The computer said that it's all connected and it has to be a source. And the second thing it said was the source has the capabilities of creating physiological constructs. I'm a physicist. You are, I am, this is.
Yeah.
Everything, when it chooses to be, though. Because if we vibrate anything around us, it will pass right through it. So
right.
It's all dependent on factors. The factors of the reality and the frequency we're in. Beyond that, doesn't exist. None of this exists. Me, you, everything.
Right.
Now, the thing is that when it says the source, what is the source? Well, is it God? Is it something else? Because it goes beyond our reality, as we know.
For literally.
It trends out into the solar system, the universe, because what they're not saying very often, some of them do, but the academics have said it a few times, there's fundamentally a mechanism. There's intelligence design in the universe, in the solar system. Everything in this solar system is designed to keep planet Earth as planet Earth. We have Jupiter save us literally every other day from meteors. We have all things. The balance, where the moon is. You know, it's impossible for the Earth to hold the moon's size, yet it does. It doesn't understand about how the moon can rotate exactly at the same speed as the rotation of the planet Earth, so we never see the far side. There's no waver in it. We see 56%, 56% of the moon because of the glow. There's never any waver. It's always 56%. The microscopic balance that put in orbit around us is not by chance. They can't find it anywhere else in the universe, no matter how deep they're looking.
It's specific to us, right?
Like ours. They can't. It's impossible. Wow. So it's as if it's manufactured to keep balance on Earth and the tides and light.
It seems very like on purpose, right?
Everything. And it's not just doesn't stop there, it carries on into the solar system. And then when we're looking deeper into the universe, they're realizing, hang on, it's like there's a mechanism of intelligence that's been planned here, it's designed. Reality as we know it is seemingly designed, but by what and what is responsible? Now, when this source wants to interact with us, it interacts in numerous different ways. And what we've done is we've taken them and put them into boxes. Well, it's UFO, it interacts in, oh, well, that's a UFO for now. Oh, well, it's paranormal then, it's a ghost society, it's over there. You know, it might be a cryptid, it just wants to scare you because it's interested about the fear pheromones. It's interested because it wants to scare the living daylight out of you.
That 19 hertz frequency, right?
Fear frequency, it wants to generate the fear pheromones of humans who are interested in, well, isn't that what poltergeists do?
Yeah, absolutely.
They are parasitic, they're the most resourceful of all phenomena. That's all they want to do, is generate vexation, fear, stress, to generate and utilize it for the next act. It's a vicious cycle. You know, cryptids are doing the werewolves, dogmen, they're doing the same thing. There's no difference. It's just wrapped up in a different mask. So the thing is that what we're doing is we get rid of the masks, look at the phenomena.
Yes.
And you think, well, that's the same as this. That's the same as you see an apparition, a smoky apparition in your bedroom. You've got paralysis. You can't move. You're interacting with it. 3 aliens walk in. There's a light shining through your window. 3 aliens in the bedroom. You can't move. You've got paralysis. Same thing. The phenomena presses our buttons because when we go to sleep at night, REM process, we go into such a deep sleep with REM. 2 things happen: input blockade and output blockade. Only happens microscopic times because we've only got to get about 8 minutes a night. We spend all night in hypnagogic, hypnopompic state, tossing and turning around, trying to get that 8 minutes because your body wants a bit of rest. Your mind needs to rest. In that process of grabbing these little bits, input blockade and output blockade happen when you're in REM, when people's rapid eye movement happens. Input blockade, you don't hear anything. Your ears are, you might as well forget it. Can't hear anything.
Yep.
Output blockade is paralysis takes place during those processes.
And scientifically speaking, does it target the T4 vertebrae in the spinal column to initiate?
The T4 vertebrae is through physical manipulation whilst in the paralysis state. So when you are paralyzed, when you have these experiences, and some people suffer from paralysis, and they're manipulated, they're moved, or whilst they can't move themselves, but something comes in and moves them, that's what causes the T4 vertebrae problems. You know, it's just an unnatural process of movement through paralysis. And the telltale signs are all there. And what's happening is that that mechanism, which is in our mind, and we do it every night when we go to sleep, the phenomena comes in and just interacts with our brains. And it presses that button, that button, that button. Now you're in paralysis. It's not generating itself. It's not magic. It's just pressing the buttons that are already there. And we know this. And now, which is getting quite scary times through the research that we're doing, the conscious connection is more established than anything we ever thought, more so than anything. You know, we thought, well, you've got to have some type of close encounter experience for that conscious connection. No, the conscious connection can be established by craft passing at ridiculously high altitude. And just because you're focused on it, a conscious connection can take place. Now, the quickest time a conscious connection has taken place that we've measured is 20 seconds, and then your discernment is lost. People don't realize that. When I say you've lost that, it means that if it wants to interact with you, it can grab you within 20 seconds and you will not act normally. Now, how do we know this? Well, we have something called bioflow bands now, which fasten to the head.
Bio what?
It's a flow band.
Oh, flow band. Okay, I'm sorry.
Bioflow bands.
It's an actual device that you wear. It measures
your brainwave
EKG symbols. Yeah.
That's right. But what it does is it measures it and sends it directly to your mobile phone, which means you're mobile. You can be out and about. And when we're out and about, and when we know these locations to go to when we interact with phenomena, what we were really surprised was that, yes, it can happen within 20, it might even happen faster than that, but we don't know. It can 20 seconds, we've got it measured out. That is a conscious connection. How do you know a conscious connection has been established? Here we go. We are, it gets interesting. We are in our waking normal state, yeah, we would never get into theta. Theta is a very relaxed, meditative sleep state type thing. It's something where our imaginations can roam. It's somewhere where our perceptions can be manipulated. It's something where our cognitive limitations happen. Now, what happens is, as soon as you end up in that conscious, it's like Bluetooth pairing. You're going to Bluetooth pair with the phenomena. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's always UFO. It could be paranormal, it could be cryptid, it could be numerous different things. But pairing takes place. And when that happens...
I like that analogy.
It's like Bluetooth pairing, yeah, and you're pairing with it. And you might not be even aware of it. Just your fascination, you've opened the door. And the thing is that when it looks and it realizes straight away we're being watched by that person down there, which might be 50 miles away, I can establish a conscious connection with that individual. It can happen within 20 seconds. We know that it's happened within 20 seconds. How do we know? What triggers it? So it gets really interesting. Your normal waking state changes and you didn't even know. What happens is that you're thrown into theta brainwave.
Okay.
You go from your normal waking process of brainwave activity into theta brainwave.
Within 20 seconds.
It can happen within 20 seconds. And you know what? When you're even in theta brainwave watching this stuff, you'd never know. You would never know that you're already being manipulated at that stage. In other words, it can do what the hell it wants. It can grab your attention and it can put on a lovely light show. But the problem is putting lovely light shows on and beautiful lights and things is to grab your attention. Why do UFOs fly around with beautiful lights and stuff? They want to grab attention. They want that. You know,
what's going on behind you while you're looking at these bright lights?
That's right. It's the magician's hand on many occasions. So we've been in these locations out and about in the middle of deserts and jungles and all sorts. But we have to be there because we've used satellites, more than one of them, and cross-examined with the detailed information that we have on reports to find out that this location is what we might call a spike location. We'll go there and we witness phenomena firsthand. So we know that it's called reverse psychological exposure. So what you tend to do is you take your theorized proposed result and work backwards. So you go to the location and see if everything falls in line. So you do it both sides. So it's a scientific analytical process of doing it both ways to reach the same conclusion, backwards or forwards or backwards. And it works for us. So we know that we're right and we interact with the phenomena. And we can see that it's easily affected through the conscious connection with us and how fast that can happen, how fast it's monitoring on these devices. The downside of that is that, yes, as George said, there is a bit of a magician's hand at play. Look at my beautiful lights. And don't get me wrong, they are beautiful. They are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, a lot of occasions they've not allowed us to photograph them. On some occasions they have. We don't know until it happens if they'll let us or not. Sometimes they won't even show up unless the camera's locked away and put away. And then
they know if you're trying to capture it, right?
Yeah.
They don't fly in from elsewhere. They just turn up. They were already there.
They just manifest.
They turn on like a light bulb.
Yeah.
And this thing is massive. They're massive, some of these things. We've seen small ones, which there are balls of light.
Or little orbs.
The balls of light are non-physical and intelligent. So they're like an intelligent plasma form.
Mm.
And they interact. And these have also
Yeah.
been nicknamed amber gamblers. They tend to be amber coloured. A lot of people do see them. And they are intelligent, but they're not physical in nature. But then we do have physical crafts which produce an auric field around them. You can measure the light of auric fields, and what that field, auric field, the frequency that they use around them is terahertz frequency.
Thank you.
And the reasons why they use terahertz frequency, because if you apply terahertz frequency to some of the materials of what they're creating, what they're made of, it causes levitation. And this is exactly the same thing that's been found in the metamaterial analysis.
Yeah.
You get material analysis and you apply certain frequencies of light and they lose their weight value. You can also increase their weight value by 700 times, depending on the frequency of light applied across them. So some of those metamaterials are absolutely, definitely the phenomena stuff. Some of them aren't, some of them are. And this is why they generate a terror, which is the same as the setting and the rising sun. Because when the sun sets at night or rises in the morning, because the way it's passing through Earth's atmosphere, it cuts out all the other frequencies, and you're left with this terahertz frequency. It's filtered out. It only happens at sunset and sunrise. This is why our ancient ancestors were aligning to the signs, the sighting of the rising and the setting of the sun, the equinox, and so on.
Yeah.
You know, the solstice. Also, it's the best time to meditate. If you sit in the setting sun, you'll feel something.
Yeah.
It does something, the setting sun to us, doesn't it? You know,
It does.
that orange glow, and it gets us into that mindset. And this is the mindset of communication. It's the same as the ancestors were doing. They built these things for the light to travel in. Now, the scientists will say, oh, well, you know, it's just because they were celebrating the time when to plant seeds. No.
No, not a chance.
What they did was, they were very clever. These ancient buildings, they had alcoves in them. And they had people sit in those alcoves.
It had to do with the angle of light at the time of day, right?
Yeah. So what happens is, dealing with a double knock system, what they're not telling you is the double knock system. The first knock is basically these people in there set inside. There might be a central area, which aligns with the doorway. And you've got people in there in these alcoves creating an om. Now, these oms some of them are difficult to produce now because we haven't got the same vocal cords as we used to have. I mean, if you just take the Gudra mantra, it took half a lifetime to learn the Gudra mantra, and we not even got the vocal cords to produce a Gudra mantra anymore. So it's, you know, it's very traditional. It's kind of phased out.
Okay.
But these certain type of frequencies were designed to cause the resonating of the building because it was a resonance chamber. The chamber is designed to resonate at a certain frequency produced from the om. There's your first knock. Then what they do is, at certain times, they bring some people in and they sit them in the middle. So all the other guys are around them doing the om. And then the light comes, the terahertz frequency light. It comes down, it hits the chamber at solstice and equinox, and it fires through into the central chamber, where it collides with the first frequency of the om. And then you've got the double knock. And what happens when you get that double knock system? Well, that's interesting because we've had equipment set up in there experimenting with the double knock system, and we've got sounds which aren't even from our side, drum beat and things like that, the movement of sound of things which aren't even, it's not our side, it's somewhere else. So they were creating an area where the veil is thin and allowed them to communicate with the deities or these things. And communication used to take place. This is how they used to communicate. The Egyptians did the same thing as well.
With the pyramids, right?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
So the process is quite well known, how to talk to the gods. And it was utilizing terahertz frequency. And this is what's around the UFOs. The UFOs are generating terahertz frequency. That's not by chance. And the thing is that we realize now that when we're out there, and we're glamoured by these beautiful, and don't get me wrong, they're like Arca's welding lights. They're pink, blues, yellows, oranges. It's fantastic to see.
It's captivating, right?
But you are totally locked on. And when you're locked on, everything else disappears. It's like it doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And it's strange because it's got you. It's got you right there at that moment. And if you've not got your wits about you, and most people wouldn't because they don't have that survival sense. It's called the fight or flight.
Yep.
You know? But the problem is that society has introduced something to the world, which is to seriously reduce your response or your
Refined sugars.
recognition of fight or flight. In other words, the warning devices in us, which is our skin, the biggest organ on our body. You'll hear paranormal investigators talk about it. All the hairs on the arms went up.
Yep, goosebumps.
Well, this is your survival sense. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to some. It's just it's that survival sense kicking in, and your body's saying to you, just because I don't see something, just because I don't hear something, I know there's something here and I don't like it. Back off.
Yeah.
That's your warning mechanism kicking in, saying back off. It doesn't like it. It knows there's something there. Now the thing is that when you start to consume heavy amounts of refined sugar, which is a poison to the body, and it is the most addictive drug in the world, because we all like sugar.
Right.
It's in literally everything in large amounts. As he's drinking a Pepsi.
Well, they do it on purpose, guys, that we can't get out of it.
Just like fluoride in your toothpaste.
Because they want us to be disconnected, not like our ancient ancestors. They
Right.
want us disconnected.
Right.
The reasons why we want us disconnected because we'll never put it all together. We'll never work it out. We'll never be aware. We'll never have control. We'll never gang together. And this is what happens. It's called complete disconnection. But when you go out on and doing these interactions and investigations like we do, we've got to starve ourselves for 72 hours of all the
You fast for 72 hours?
Wow.
Be fast away from
Wow. That's like a biological dedication to what you're trying to do. That's amazing. I love that you're mentioning this.
Well, when you go out there and you interact with the phenomena, boy, does your body tell you. Your body relaxes like a Christmas tree. And I never realised how much it does until you start to get it out of your body.
Yes.
And then interact. Because when you do, your body's it's like a Christmas tree when you was any problems, any danger, anything a bit your body's telling you, reacting straight away. If you listen to this and not this,
Yeah.
just like our ancestors, you absolutely know how to govern the phenomena.
And our ancestors were definitely not chugging down sugar like we do.
No.